Thank you. Thank you. And you'll hit the button over there, please, Justin. Thank you, sir. Well, good morning to everybody. We are the Community Advisory Board. We're known as CAB. We were established by the Community Corrections Partnership. It is referred to in our county as CCP. Let's now move to introductions. Monique, would you first kindly call the roll so we can establish quorum?
Yes.
We'll ask each CAB member to identify yourself and please identify the region, for example, West County, etc., or any other identifying. We would appreciate it. I'll start first, or maybe you call the roll and then I'll start.
Okay. So Crawford Carpenter,
Here.
Nicole Green,
Here.
Ozzy Carter,
Here.
Justin Van Zerber,
Here.
Brenda Lee,
Here.
Scott Parsons,
Here.
and Reverend Van Hook.
Here.
Okay, those are the board members that are present in person. We also have Rena Moore online. Rena, can you tell me if you're attending with the Just Cause, or are you just attending without voting?
Just cause.
Okay, so what we have to do is you all have to vote to approve for Rena to participate virtually. She had an emergency, so and it falls within the Just Cause, so she will be a voting member, but you all have to vote. So if I could get a motion for her to virtually participate.
We have a motion, please.
This is Nicole. I'll give a motion for the more to participate.
We have a second.
Absolutely, sir.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion? Let's call the vote.
Okay, and was that Scott who did the second?
It was.
Okay, all right. Okay, Crawford,
Aye.
Nicole,
Aye.
Brenda,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Reverend Van Hook,
Aye.
Justin,
Aye.
and Ozzy.
Aye.
Okay, motion carried. So Rena will be participating in the voting virtually, the meeting virtually.
Monique, thank you very much for catching that. Thank you so much for going out of your way, Rena, with your emergency. You thought enough to join us, so we really appreciate that. Okay, let's do introductions. I'll start. My name's Crawford Carpenter. I'm in my third year here with CAB. It's been a pleasure, and as I share with some of my other colleagues here, Nicole and Ozzy, we're on the clock because this is our third year, and we've got a lot to get done here over the next 6 months. By George, we're going to get it done and set the stage for those to follow. I'm from Central County. Next, Scott, why don't you?
Okay, my name is Scott Parsons, resident of Moraga, and long career with the county, office of the sheriff, and just happy to be here.
Reverend Julius Van Hook, representing West County, resident of Hercules, and a Richmond native.
Justin Van Zerber is my first year with CAB, resident of West County.
Nicole Green is my third year with this East County.
Ozzy Carter, my third year, resident of East County, Pittsburgh, and I'm going to miss you guys.
I'm Brenda Lee. I'm from West County, a lifelong resident of Richmond, California, and this is my first year.
Well, thank you. Let's now move to introductions. Let's see who we have of staff first, and then we'll go to some, since we have a small group. Would you kindly introduce yourself? Please.
I'm Denise Zabkevich. I'm the Research and Evaluation Manager with the ORJ.
Hello, I'm Mariana Youngblood. I'm a graduate intern at the ORJ.
Wow.
Hi folks, Dr. Shantina Jackson Romero. There's a community member, but used to be a men and women of purpose. So nice to meet all of you today.
Okay, all right. And now let's go to other people that are here and then we'll go to Zoom. The two ladies, please.
Hi, I'm Teresa Jackson and I work in the project that impacts justice. I'm a senior program. My name is Bernadette Butler. I'm the director of the Homecoming Project at Impact Justice. I'm also a resident. So I'm a New York native tonight. That's what
Okay, well, thank you. Now let's go to those who have joined us via Zoom. Charles, would we start with you, please?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. My name is Charles Brown. I'm a business services representative and reentry coordinator with the Workforce Development Board. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, Rena, I forgot, you're on Zoom. Please introduce yourself. You're on mute, Rena.
Sorry. My name is Rena Moore. This is my first year on CAB. I'm an East County resident.
Thank you. And could we go to Cynthia to be kind enough to introduce yourself?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Cynthia Zabala, Program Manager with Centerforce. It's good to be here. Good to see everyone.
And Tiffany?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tiffany and I'm the interim site manager for the Reentry Success Center. Thank you.
And thank you. And we have somebody on the phone there. Would you please introduce yourself? Okay, we'll keep moving then. And finally, Monique.
Hi, I'm Monique Tate. I'm with the Office of Reentry and Justice. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's keep moving here. Prior to moving to some of the other items here, we should probably set the table as to our decorum, because we've got people here in the audience. We have board members, and then we have people in the audience Zoom. So here's the way we're going to ask that we approach this. Persons who wish to address the Community Advisory Board during the public comment on matters within the jurisdiction of the Community Advisory Board that are not on the agenda or who wish to comment, I know this is long, but I want to make sure we get this out here. With respect to an item, they may comment via Zoom, or you may comment by calling in. We have one call-in member. Those participating in person should make a comment when called upon. And we just want to stress that we want to hear from the board members first who are behind me. So if my wing person here, if you'll let me know if there are comments back here, thank you, because we want to make sure we're courteous to those. Those calling in, we have one individual calling in here. If you wish to speak, please hit *9. That will raise your hand. Then afterwards, you have to go to *6 to unmute, and then *6 again. And that will mute you again. I know this is lengthy, bear with me. As a courtesy to others, all public comments, kindly limit those to 2 minutes per speaker. Now let's pause a moment and let's review what our purpose is. Our primary purpose is to advise CCP by assessing the implementation of the county reentry strategic plan. Some of our responsibilities, we have several, but I'll highlight 2 of them today. Reviewing data on realignment outcomes and offering recommendations for ongoing realignment planning. Let's move now to announcements. Have any announcements first from CAB members? None. Rena, any announcement?
And not at this time, thank you.
Thank you. Let's move to staff. Are there any announcements? Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Nicole. I wanted to take a quick moment to give you an update on the cab service provider survey that we distributed several weeks ago now, with a deadline that was a week ago last Friday. We then had what I thought was insufficient responses. So I followed up and sent out another reminder about it with the link. And we now have, and we're planning to close tomorrow. We have now 13 responses. Last year we had 17, so it's a little disappointing. There are, however, a number of agencies that I am aware of that have gone through some significant changes with their staff. So I'm not sure that we will get feedback from them, but there are other agencies that I'm gonna just affectionately nudge one more time before we close it down tomorrow. But otherwise, we will have those responses, and the data team will begin looking at that and preparing a report.
Thank you.
So, and I do not have an update on the in-custody survey. I know Patrice has been working on that with folks with California, but I'm just here to give you an update on it. So does anybody have any questions about it? Okay,
Thank
great.
you, Denise.
You're welcome.
Are there any other announcements from staff? Tiffany, anything from your vantage point?
Thank you, Crawford. Yes, we are actually going to be hosting our Alpha Step Ahead ceremony. It's first in-person ceremony since, you know, the pandemic, COVID. So we're really excited to be able to celebrate our upcoming cohort who's scheduled to complete Friday, July 21st from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. We will be sending out a save the date. Of course, we would like to, you know, invite all of our partners and just our networks and community to uplift and support and celebrate our members who will be completing not only the Alpha cohort, also accomplishing many other goals and milestones along the way. So we're really looking forward to that. In addition to the Alpha Step Ahead ceremony, we are having our second annual Welcome Home Block Party scheduled for Friday, July 28th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So we're really looking forward to these upcoming community events and really just back in person and interacting and reaching more community members and extending our services as much as possible. Thank you.
You, Tiffany. And then finally, let's move to the public at large. Are there any announcements from the public at large? Hearing or seeing none. Now let's move to the rest of our agenda. Our next agenda item is public comment. Is the public comment on any item under the jurisdiction of the Community Advisory Board that is not on this agenda? Again, public comment. None being heard, let's move to the next item on our agenda. Item number 3. Item number 3 is the approval of the record of actions from our May 11th, 2023 CAB general meeting. If you would be kind enough to attach 1, pages 4 through 6. This will be a voting item. We will give you another 30 seconds to 45 seconds to review. You've all received this information, and then we will move to a motion.
This is Bobby Carter. I would like to make a motion for the approval of our previous board meeting on May 11th. Action.
Is there a second?
This is closing, second motion to approve minutes from, last meeting on May 11th.
Is there discussion from the board?
Just one discussion item. I've noticed in our agenda for today and in that agenda, the terminology being used in next steps on May 11th meeting, one of them being the ambassador scheduling and updating the toolkit. The schedule and the toolkit are two separate documents, and I just want to make sure that going forward, we don't need to change this, but that we have some clarity around it, because that's not one document, that's two separate documents.
Good point, thank you. Any discussion from the public at large? Seeing none, would you please call the vote, Monique?
Okay, Crawford,
Aye.
Brenda Lee,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Reverend Van Hook,
Aye.
Ozzy,
Aye.
Nicole,
Aye.
Justin,
Aye.
and Rena.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you, Monique. Well, now we're going to move to the next item, which is item number 4 on our agenda. And we've got two individuals who are going to make a presentation to us regarding the homecoming project. Would the two of you be kind enough to introduce yourselves again to the audience, and let the rest of them sit back? And let's go, let's roll. You start, please.
Sure, I'll start. So again, my name is Bernadette. I'm the director of the Homecoming Project at Impact Justice. You'll hear plenty more about both of those, the Homecoming Project and Impact Justice. I'll take a moment, if you'll indulge me, to tell you a little bit more about myself. I'm a person, so it's important to me to know who's in the room and to let others know who's in the room. So I am, as I said earlier, a New York transplant to California. I am a product of the diaspora. My parents grew up in the Dominican Republic. I grew up in New York. So I'm the daughter of immigrants. I'm the first in my family to go to college. I was for many years in California for about most of my professional career, 20 years of having been an educator in the classroom as an administrator, also in education nonprofit settings. I did that because I saw the different educational outcomes that my siblings had compared to me. I went to a private high school on scholarships. My siblings went to public schools. And for those of you who are unfortunately familiar with the experiences of being in some public schools, depending on the zip code that you come from, that does not always necessarily translate into educational opportunities and pathways. So was the case for my siblings. They struggled as grown-ups. Some of them still struggle as grown-ups. One of my siblings has just come home from having been incarcerated. So I have 3 brothers, so all men of color, and a sister, so women of color. So for my experience, that comes to the state of understanding from a personal perspective, the ways in which our system, our individuals in these communities are impacted by it. So I very deeply understand it from both personal side, but also from the professional side. It took a while to get to here to where I am in terms of justice, reform space, but I'm here because I see and have seen the ways in which the work it overlaps and connects. So when I was, for example, a volunteer in prison in college, I remember one of the gentlemen I was working with, who was getting his GP of working with 3 students, and one of them was so excited he got this problem that he was working on it really hard. And I go, you know, miss, if I had you as a teacher, I don't think I would be here today. And that touched me. To this day, it still does. We know that there are overlapping systems within that grade. So when I'm working with a student who is, for example, when I was a teacher who was hungry, who had just witnessed something the night before, whose family was experiencing homelessness, it's going to be a lot harder to learn for the student who's coming and not having those challenges. And so our job as community members, I see it here, those of us who are just in community-based organizations, whether you live in and grew up in Richmond, whether you live in Hercules now, or wherever it is that all of us are coming into this. I know that all of us are in this space because we care deeply
and sort of bringing in all the perspectives. So I just wanted to hear a little bit more about where I'm coming from and how I'm showing up to this. No, she is, and you all will hear from Teresa herself. This woman is just like powering her in herself.
My name is Teresa Jacqueline, and I'm the senior program associate development project since not too long, since September, but I've been following the work of Impact Justice and the Homecoming Project for a while. Similar to Bernadette, I have a background in education, early education specifically, so same with all of the understanding of how much that affects long-term outcomes for our community members. Me in particular, the reason I got involved in education and then in the legal space is because my family has been directly impacted. I have a dad who's done time. I have a brother who's currently incarcerated and being moved out of prison. I have another brother who has been off probation for about 5 years. So really exciting things for our family. But what drew me to this program and this organization in particular is that I think all of the work we do, we try to do it from the lens of a holistic approach, a compassionate approach, and it's really necessary, especially with this program that we work for. Houselessness affects folks who are rejoining their community disproportionately. It's something that my family dealt with on a regular basis. I grew up in Contra Costa, California, and we were chronically homeless while I was growing up. So I see these connections between education, between housing security, between incarceration, and more. And I feel really grateful and gratified to be part of the program where I think we're really honing in on those connections and trying to change the landscape, right? And it's not for us, it's for the broader criminal legal system. It's not. We'll talk more about impact justice in our model for innovations, but we really don't try to hoard these ideas in these programs. We want to spread awareness, and we want to increase capacity so that other entities can take on this work in partnership. And we have some slides we're going to share that I think.
Monique,
Yeah, would you like me to share your slides?
Yes, please.
Okay. I think the only issue I might have is the video, but I can go into the browser and do that. So let me go to page 7. Just 1 second.
oh, and for those of you on Zoom, can you hear the speaker and can you hear us when we are talking?
Yes, Crawford, this is Charles. I can hear you.
Thank you, Charles. It's not muffled, is it? Or
It's a little choppy, I think, at times.
Yeah,
But for the most part, I think we can hear you. But just I'm sorry, you guys. Just please identify yourself when you're speaking so that people can know who's speaking.
Okay, I'll get it started. This is Teresa. We can go to the next slide.
Okay.
So I'm going to start by talking a little bit about impact justice as an organization. We're a national nonprofit, and we have our mission, but they're all you all read it yourself. But I wanted to emphasize that we really focus on that part around changing expectations about what can be accomplished, because we're an organization that was founded in response to systems that perpetuate inequity and cycles of harm, and we have an interesting approach to programming. Like I said, which isn't that wild. Our programming is focused on implementing solutions that are direct and innovative and responsive to big issues in the criminal legal space now. And so the Homecoming Project is one of those programs. And we can just go to the next slide. I'm going to talk more about breaking down the vision or the mission for us and talking about specifically what we do. So we are a national nonprofit, like I mentioned, and research center. So we have a research center, but we also have what are called innovation programs for innovations. And all of our innovation programs fall into one of 3 buckets. First, we try to support people who are pre-sentencing, basically, like trying to prevent more people getting caught up in the legal space. Second, we try to improve conditions and advocate for on behalf of millions of people who are still incarcerated. And third, we expand opportunities for formerly incarcerated folks. And that's where the Homecoming Project lands, in that third bucket. So we can scroll to the next, which we're going to show a short video about Homecoming, and it's great because this is a video that focuses on our actual participants speaking from their own experience, and same with the host.
Okay, so let's see if I can get this video to play. Okay, so let me go back. It won't do it that way, but let me try it. Is the link on your website or is it a different link? I can't hear you.
Oh, it might be in your inbox as a YouTube.
Okay, you said you sent it in my inbox?
Yes.
Okay, let me stop share then. Let me go to my email. Just 1 second, please.
Yeah, while you're doing that, Teresa used some terms like host and participants, participants are those folks who are re-entering community. The hosts are folks in the community who are, who believe in the power of redemption, who believe in the power of community, who have a spare room in their homes, and do not mind the 14 up to $14 a month that we pay to house a participant for up to 6 months. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. And so, as Teresa said, the folks that you'll see in this video are participants. There's one, I think one participant teacher and hosts who've been repeat hosts, and this is in Alameda County. You feel free to start the video anytime. I'm just gonna keep on talking until the video comes out. That's too much. When you work. We don't need to be intentional silence, but it's a housing first approach. I think some of you in this room really can appreciate the importance of that. We'll tell you about our outcomes during the course of presentation. I'll be quiet because this will speak volumes.
And I hope you guys can hear it. Let me play it now. Let's see if it works. Can you hear it?
No.
Okay, yeah, so well, the volume won't come out through your end, but I can hear it. So why don't I do this? I sent you all the agenda. Maybe you can sign in from your computer and I can give you sharing capabilities. How about that?
Yeah.
So
Oh, sorry.
did you get the agenda that I sent you?
Yes.
Okay.
We'll do that. While Teresa's pulling it up, Monique, is it okay if I continue?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So I'll say that we're not a transitional home in the way you're transitional home. We provide housing that is transitional because our participants are with us after 6 months. You'll hear more about what happens during those 6 months, but at a high level, there's a significant amount of case management that a participant is receiving. So we don't just drop them off. Here are the keys, here's your participant, good luck. That's not our model, that is not our style. We also know that the reason our outcomes are so strong. I'll tell you about those outcomes momentarily. Yeah.
Monique, can you give me sharing?
Yes, just 1 second.
The reason why our outcomes are so strong is because of the risk management and strong. Let's see, we can't do this work without community. We can't do it without community-based organizations who are referring participants to us. We cannot do it with the strong, and I'm looking at that interfaith organizations in the communities that we're in. Oftentimes, those are the first source of hosts for us. Is people who again are like, absolutely, we take care of our own, and we believe in second chances and third chances, and sometimes more. So video of this out.
Teresa, are you able?
You go in and you're being treated, like you're subhuman. Places make it a lot easier to be accepted more into the community. And people with that mindset and that caring makes a big difference. Well, I'm really enjoying being home. being formerly incarcerated, that stability has been very instrumental. Knowing that you're in a stable, secure place. So when you're out there trying to find a job, when you're trying to establish your credit, and not having to worry about, well, where am I going to be sleeping tonight?
The Bay Area is home for me because of my family. I have a partner, Joe. We've been together for about 12 years. We had our first participant in October 2018. It was a learning experience, I think, for both of us. We were coming from really different backgrounds, but we just had a really natural friendship. I went with Jason to buy his first car with him, did the paperwork together, going to a restaurant, reading a menu. Scott's our fourth participant.
I have 2 grown daughters, 9 grandchildren, love them dearly. Previously, to have any time with them, I was having to drive over 6.5 hours. One of the obstacles that I was coming up against is I would have to transfer my parole. I needed to have a residence. Impact Justice explained to me how the program worked and that they had a couple that we might be compatible. And when all was said and done, I think we were both pretty much in agreement that we wanted to do this, and it's been very positive.
The Homecoming Project is really necessary in the Bay Area just because the housing prices are so high. It's really hard for people who are just starting off fresh to be able to even survive, let alone thrive.
Right.
For us on the host side, it's really helpful to have, the extra income. I felt the roommates are so well vetted. I felt like it was actually a really safe way to make use of the space that we had.
There are thousands and thousands of people across the country who are being released from prison every year, but we don't invest in them, we don't give them resources, and we don't give them a safe, healthy place to live when they come out. And so the Homecoming Project says there are extra bedrooms in communities that are underserved by the sharing economy. So let's push back against gentrification, pay homeowners to become hosts, to take people who have been in prison, live with them for 6 months. Enterprise and Wells Fargo created the Breakthrough Challenge to invest in innovative housing solutions. So that took us on a journey to explore housing for people leaving prison. We thought we were building a housing project, we built a relationship project. To see people laugh together, eat together, navigate our lives together.
I'm not a housing expert, I'm just a regular person, and we can all do something. It's just part of my responsibility as a community member to make sure that people in our community have a safe place to live.
The goal was to have that stability so I can work on the other pieces of that puzzle. And the Homecoming Project and Joe and Tamika were able to fulfill that for me and really make that a lot easier.
This has just added such a richness to my life and is just something I really cherish.
That was really exciting to hear, to see Scott was there, that was their participant, other gentlemen that were there when they had hosted previously, so they had a connection long term. They become friends, they become very close to each other as community members. But this slide, I'm not gonna read too much on here, but I wanted to talk about like why housing. Because we are an organization that functions to reform the criminal legal field, it might not be like a first inclination to think, okay, housing is the big issue. But we work particularly with people who've done a lot of prison time, so they have at least sentenced to at least 10 years. And so many of them, our average, they're doing more than 20 years when they're coming out to us. And so many don't have a home to return to. They come into the Bay Area where it's ridiculous and it's very hard to find affordable housing for yourself to live independently. And then there's the that's all exacerbated by these discriminatory housing practices that folks engage in. So we really, this housing first approach, we really want to focus on the fact that first they need to see housing before they can access those other areas to successfully rejoin their communities. Yeah, and it's just, there's lots of challenges, and here are some of the steps.
So our program, there's kind of three pillars that I think are important to address in our program. First, the host in the video mentioned how well vetted the participants are. We vet our hosts as well. We carefully screen our participants. So we ask that they, I'll talk to the eligibility requirements. We ask for documentation to ensure that that's actually true, that we know kind of the complete story about them and the fact that they did a lot of programming on different sectors. Before they actually move in somewhere, they meet their host. So we have these match meetings and they get to interview their host interview them. It's a mutual decision. If for any reason it doesn't work out, we introduce them to another host. The rental segment is nice. We've been able to bring that segment up to try to perform it with the market. We pay $45 a day to our host, which works out between like $1,300 to $1,495 per month. And then this last point, the case management. So it's not just rental stipend. We also connect all of our participants with community navigators, someone who's providing mentorship, but also their ultimate aim to work with this participant is, will they have stable housing when they graduate in 6 months? Will they have full-time employment? And we have really great outcomes in those areas. A little bit about home host screening. They either have to be a homeowner or be able to sign the paperwork, have their a landlord or property manager sign the paperwork. We do a home inspection. There are house rules that we go over. We follow them. And there's a little bit about our participant screening. And yeah, already touched on. Here are eligibility requirements for participants. So they have to have incentives for at least 10 years. At least 3 in custody rehab programs in any area. They have to be eligible based on parole. No, they can't come to us if they're required to go to 6 months in a traditional transitional housing place. They can come afterwards. And they have to be able to move on activities of daily living without assistance. Unfortunately, right now we can't support folks who have sex offenses on their record. We can tell you more about that if you have questions, but that is one exclusion.
So I'll go through these slides because we want to make sure 3 minutes to go through these next 2 slides and we want to make sure that we need time for Q&A. So
Excuse me, you take your time.
Oh, okay. That's coming from the manager.
We have a motion.
Yes.
Last week, I'm also a storyteller, as a language arts teacher and a math teacher, and so I'll just share this last week. Teresa and I had the privilege of meeting a gentleman who came by way of a nonprofit partner. The nonprofit partner of Tears in Albuquerque County, who picked up this person who's being released from San Quentin, put them off the prison. Brought it to us, like, do you have space for this gentleman in your program? We said we can connect him to emergency housing just because at face value we can see he is pre-screened, he's eligible. So we connected him to they literally dropped him off to our offices. It was a legit baton pass. Like, they took him to breakfast, they got him some clothes, they did their due diligence, and then they brought him to our offices. And then Teresa and I packed his stuff in the car and we drove to the place. In the case where he was saying, while we're driving, I'm looking at his face and I said to him, I was like, are you overwhelmed? You've been incarcerated for 30 years. And so he said, I'm so and I said, wait, I got more for you. See her car? That's the camera right up front. And it shows her what's happening behind her. She doesn't just need to see what's happening in front of her. There's some cars that try for themselves and just like, and I'm sure you how to use your phone. And I share that with you because I think it can be elusive to people who are not working with folks who are incarcerated and who have been incarcerated for lengthy sentences to really understand. It's like going back in time. We'll fast forward in time for them, right? And so things like getting your paperwork back in order. It's not just that, it's also understanding the technology and function day to day. Like when I told him, I was like, oh yeah, if you don't know where you're going, you can use your Google. Right? It's it is, right? Exactly. And then he was like, oh, if you need to buy something, I was like, you don't have to just go to the store, like, you can literally taste it. It was lovely, it was a great conversation, and at the end of it, and Teresa and I both had the feeling that he was overwhelmed, when he said, look, you're close to the bar, that's our time, but I'll move through this, but, you know, he said, I just don't know how to say thank you, I'm so grateful just to have a place to call my own. He looked at his room, he had his own bed, it was fully furnished, the host was incredibly gracious, had been hosting us first before, and it just was, it's powerful, you know, and so we're privileged to be in this. So our case managers work with participants to ensure that they have those that paperwork, but then they support our participants at whatever stage they are in the country, whether they're coming from having been incarcerated 10 years or 30 years. And like Teresa said, most of our participants are older, most of our participants are men, most of our participants are Black and brown. That is not intentional. We intend to serve anyone who fits those criteria. We're looking right now thoughtfully about the way in which our criteria may inadvertently exclude women or make it more difficult to have women in this country or to be able to enter our program. So we're looking at that. Again, when we're thinking about our intent under impact justice umbrella, we want to be able to serve those who are in the entity who have been impacted by the system. For hosts, we provide them with training and support. One that we have coming up next week is a conversation, you'll like this, my friend, is a conversation for hosts to understand where CPCR agent who oversees final re-entry for the most extreme cases in California around the entry, those high profile cases, all of the entry in California. He is a fan of the Homecoming Project and Impact Justice. He's a man of the community, grew up in Oakland, lives in Oakland, and says, like, I know their laws, people break them, they will share, but we want to make sure that when they come back, that there's where he's like, the fact that you're supposed to doing this, I think it's great. We want to make sure they understand how to interact with them. So we just knock on the door, we understand what can and cannot happen. We want it to be possible for folks to do this and for the host not to feel like their space is being invaded. Our hosts are not police officers. Our hosts are not standing by the door doing key tests. This is not a transitional housing. I said that earlier. These people do not have guidelines about when you come home. The host and the participant decide together what the house rules are. House rule might be like Nicole and I were talking earlier, don't talk to me at 8 a.m. I'm not chipping at 8 a.m. You don't see the dimples come out until 9 a.m. Just so we know. And that's what I'm campaign. So that's so that's host, and as Teresa mentioned, it's a mutual process. There's both the host and the participant and have to say, yeah, you know what, I would love to live with the host. She's really good. Thanks. So this is we asked Joey to share this with him. So Joey is our next community navigator. I cannot tell you how excited we are at Impact Justice because I am proud to share that Impact Justice is an organization that says the experience I hear a lot of people have been impacted or falling frustrated say when I start my job, sometimes I walk right out the door when I disclose. And sometimes I disclose before I'm treated differently. At Impact Justice, I feel like we roll out the red carpet. I was joking around at the end of the poll. I was like, I feel like I need to go to jail just to get special treatment around here. We really invite people who are system impacted and justice involved to work at Impact Justice because the perspective is not. At the Homecoming Project, as a program within Impact Justice, 100% of our team have been either system involved or justice involved impacted. This particular community navigator, Joey, is one of our participants. He was in San Quentin. I don't know how long his sentence was, but it was certainly over 10 years because he qualified as a participant. And while he was in San Quentin, he was in alcohol and alcohol substance abuse counseling. Since he has been out, he has been doing that work as a case manager. And he is, again, he's a Homecoming Project participant, successful like that. So by the time he finishes our program in a few weeks, he will be starting with us at the Homecoming Project. And so we are so incredibly fortunate to have him. So he's got a little bit of experience, he's been a counselor, and he, again, really thoroughly given both of those pieces he has occupied rural I can continue on in terms of helping us our outcomes. So we can go to the next, that was just showing a little bit of the program, I think, the program at this point. But a success that I want to highlight, and again, I was a math and language arts teacher. For me, patterns, oh, I love patterns in words and numbers and motivation, anything. And so I noticed when I was growing up, when sentences start, the odds are you never can put people that look like us. The odds are that if you look like I did, you wouldn't have to go to college. The odds are if you look like I did, you would have probably go to jail. The odds are you probably could have died younger than you should have, not from natural causes. We don't like those odds, right? And so what I'm in the business of is good. Love this. This is the first time in my career where I can say some of these odds are not only impeccable, but there's a 0% step that I'm going to tell you that we're striving for. I never strived to 0%. This is who I am. So 100% of our participants move into long-term health. 100% by the time they leave us, 6 months. 195% of our participants leave us full-time employment. 0% of our participants here to 0%, wait for it. 0% of our participants have facility. Those are good odds, right? And that is the first time in my life as again, I haven't been a teacher where I would say I am striving for 6%. And I've been doing this. So our we have different recognitions you can see at the bottom that has meant funding that has been made available to us. We are not coming into in Coco County saying we need your money. We're saying we need your investment of time. We need hosts. We need participants. We are expanding faculty. We just launched in San Luis County. We have been in the Bay Area since 2018. We are about to celebrate a huge. Also, I think that within the next week or so, we will have served 100 participants as re-entry folks in the Bay Area with all of those outcomes. So we are incredibly proud and we want to, as Teresa said earlier, impact justice. It is not our job to keep these successes. We are a research and action center. Our job is to say what's working, let's seed it, scale it, and then move away so that we can do the next innovative. What else is a crazy idea that is not happening that actually turns out it's not so crazy? None works. So I'll leave it there for Q&A. I don't know how much time we have. I'll look at the man in charge and he can tell us.
Questions, go ahead. You
I don't have any questions, but again, I don't want the one main reason that I wanted to have them come speak in front of all of them is for a couple of keywords they said that I'm trying to know are. They're looking for innovative ways to come up with to help their RVH artists that doesn't impact the individual. And so that was the first thing that stood out to me is they're not afraid to try something new. They're not afraid to take a suggestion that doesn't work. If they try it, if it works, then they will expand it to everybody else. And that's what we're looking for. We talked about that at Canada. What can you do to be able to make a change in Contra Costa? One other key thing that I know that there are talking about, not just MICC, they're looking at other counties. So they've been successful in Alameda County. And it's starting to take a look at other counties and bring them to our table and say, what are you doing that's different than us that we can now bring the cat. Since that we did our last year, trying to go bang here, y'all. So I'll leave it for any questions, but I feel like I could not articulate what these two ladies do really well together, and I thought I'd bring them here and let them explain to you themselves what impact has been the whole project.
Y'all should know the wheeling is mutual. I've been trying to steal Nicole for a minute. And so if one of y'all don't, I will.
And while she was speaking, I just wanted to mention, we just reference to Contra Costa. One is living with his family already, so they're actually going to host him, so we'll be able to bring some additional income into the household and feel like less the burden on his sister in this case, and he'll get the case management.
So can you elaborate on that? When you're talking about hosts, but
we don't, the family mentions aren't as common. I think we've probably done like maybe like 6 over the year. There's someone in the program right now, this person that we're recruiting now. But if they for any reason are already living with their family member, or let's say they're at transitional for 6 months and then they plan to live with a family member, as long as their family member can sign the document, we can have them host and get that additional income coming into the household. When that works out, like that, we love it. Obviously, because it's more comfortable for the participant. And again, they don't feel like they're drawing anything out. They feel like they're contributing to the household. They're not burdening, extra burdening their family members.
Reverend.
You're about to invite us to church, no problem.
Enjoyed your presentation. I am familiar with the homecoming project because we did have a presentation. We were invited there to the Interfaith Council, the Contra Costa County. And I think one of them. And but I'm so glad that I was able to experience the presentation from the all that had completely different flavor.
Have a little Latin twist,
I
little
loved
Caribbean
it.
twist.
I was But so I am familiar with this program and we're going to try to push this in the faith-based community as well, so that the congregations in Contra Costa County will be aware of the homecoming project and hopefully be able to get their parishioners to participate as well. So currently working on that.
And that's a great sell because we have a host incentive too. So if anyone you know or if you were to refer a host and they actually start hosting, we pay $200, not much, but it's like a nice little bonus.
Thank you so much for bringing this to panel. As a family incarcerated, having more than once $250 a day, leaving here from San Bernardino, coming back to my area, without a place to go. I hadn't done 10 years, but I think my longest journey was probably 6. And for me today, it's with gratitude because we have a pen pal that's in juvenile life. And one of the things that we communicate is possibilities. Because we always want to have a hope, a parole, where to go. That's always a question. And not only homelessness on a large scale, but definitely from individuals coming to prison. I think it's a phenomenal program. And I think that bringing it to CAB is probably the best thing that could happen for CAB, because you've opened our eyes, to something that is truly innocent. And we have people here who can be an extension from CAB into our community. Thank you so much for this.
Couple of questions.
All right, Cheryl.
Yeah. So the first one, the 10-year requirement interests me. And
Research based. Those are the folks who are the least likely to recidivate. Older population, they're not into the shenanigans, and then combined with rehabilitative programs while in prison. We had the person that we dropped off last week, Sam, his host of the sets up landlord, and we went in and and our host, by the way, have to live in. So he lives right now in his space, in an apartment with 3 participants, 2 current, 1 alum, and he said, he was like, your tenants, he goes, participants are my best tenants. He said, all the time, well, I don't know about that, right? I can tell you, because you guys, know how long you've been. So that's research based.
so that vetting was actually a question of the 3, so there's one in between.
All
But
right.
tell me about that. That interests me. To what extent do you go to make sure you're getting those who would be most likely, right, to be successful, I would think, right?
Yeah, so we have an application guide that has the requirements so people can self-screen themselves, because we start reaching out to people who are in prison, people who are currently in transitional, folks who just trying to, we go to the tax meetings. So when we get an application, the application is, as you'd expect, basic information and then questions about their living style. So like on a scale of 1 to 10, how clean are you? What do you prefer in a roommate relationship? How do you resolve conflict? After that first initial application is done, then I have to get documentation to actually see that they meet the requirements. So I ask for a legal status summary or an abstract of judgment to see all the convictions that they have, how much time they were convicted to. I run a Megan wall for all of our participants. Then we ask for actual certificates or records of their programming, so we have to see at least 3 that they've done. And then finally, we ask for the compass. It's like a criminogenic need scale that parole uses. They usually do their first assessment before they get out of prison, where they assess their risk factors. So they say, you know, education, that it's gonna be a high risk factor for this person, or it's gonna be a moderate one. Residential instability will be a high one. So that is not to exclude anyone, no matter what their scores are on that. We are committed to supporting them as long as they meet the other requirements. But that's something that would form their case manager, their community navigator, something they'll look at and say, oh, these are what CCRs say are big issues for them that might, you know, put their freedom at risk in the future.
To add to that, that was very thorough. Teresa does this pre-screening for all of the participants. And she's that a huge part of her job is also working with agents to help facilitate sometimes those moves from one county to Alameda County, where we currently are. Once we done some Contra Costa, there's someone in Alameda who wants to be Contra Costa, or someone in Contra Costa who wants to go to Alameda, for example. Those are just some examples, but we also just did someone in Sacramento who really would be better situated in Alameda as a network of support. What I was going to say is the case manager, Teresa said that it was criminogenic assessments, all the other data that we're collecting. Not only helps with the matching process, but it really helps the case navigator, community navigator, case manager come up with an independence plan from day one when we have a participant on the meet with the participant, and they are actively working that plan throughout the 6 months of the participation. That answering
It did. This,
We have an intake interview with them there before they start the pension.
great. The last thing was, how are you funded?
So most of Impact Justice's grants are government grants, so government agencies. So the for the homecoming project, so it is also true that most of our funding is government agencies. We also do have some philanthropic dollars. So the video that you saw was put on in a collaboration with Enterprise Community. They gave us a significant amount of investment, so private funds in the funding from Wells Fargo, to be able to, for us to be able to scale our program. So they took us from where we were with some initial seed funding, where we weren't getting close nearly as much, we weren't even able to provide case management at the time. And so we got that investment from Enterprise. And now that we leverage those funds to be able to expand the program offerings, now we continue to, the funding that we have sought has been around the state. So BSCC, Cal, CRG, we're trying to think of our other key funders. There are some private collective dollars. I think I'm missing one, but those are our biggest ones right now. And then the state of California through California Public, sorry, all these acronyms, workforce development. I'm looking for the acronym. Sorry.
Great.
It's,
That was
workforce
my
development,
3 questions. Thank you.
CWFD, so we just got a state plan for all of IJ, but a significant portion of that, about 1.3 million for which is why I said earlier, we're not coming in and asking for additional resources. We have resources, not that we would turn it away. I can tell you how my name is spelled, I can tell you but because, and like Teresa said, you know, we have aspirations to be able to give more to the hosts. Those are doing a tremendous service to the community. You know, and most of them are doing it because they get it. And great that they get it, and we want to be able to do that.
And some of them are even tapping into support staying in the community, like, you know, leaving from Oakland. My family doesn't live in Oakland anymore because they've had to move out. I'm thinking great, I can't live in Oakland, but some people, it supports them with like really staying rooted in the community. So we see it as also a natural supporter to the, you know, some of the really rapid gentrification that is.
I will help you out there. Have a question in that point. If you ladies left out, in my opinion, they left out something that really stuck out to me. So when I first met them, I thought about how we do things from a transition process standpoint. We have houses, they get house managers, there's nobody actually live on site, maybe their house manager is there. But one thing that they open my eyes to is with a host, they're learning from someone. They're living from someone. So if someone that's been away 10 plus years, that don't know anything about what this world looks like right now, and by living with a host, I can mimic you. I can mimic what you're doing, I've seen what work. And that, we talked about, not taking away from traditional housing, not taking away from solar environments, but I still do think that they're needed, right? I believe every type of house is needed for a person. But that really stuck out to me because we don't have that in the house. What's in the house is you have one house manager, but they're mimicking the same type of person, the same behavior. They don't have someone they can watch, oh, that's how you get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, make a cup of coffee.
Right.
Right. And so when I thought about, I'm from Alameda, Alameda, Contra Costa County, to the world, and how do we get the community, kind of like, I'm glad she was in contact with you guys, but how do we get the community to be able to see the need? Because one argument community makers, they're not involved, right? So how do we get them more involved to understand that the need for people that come home like this, to open up their door and say, I'll take you in. In other counties, San Francisco, they're like, come on. But in Contra Costa County, we don't see that too often where people are, I guess I'll take someone that's been in state prison for 10 years. How do we get the community to see if we want to make a change, we have to look at these different ways. So we have to open our door. If we want our community to be different here, how about we show them how to make it? So. Sorry, but to follow that, one of the questions I had, because we deal with a lot of individuals, of course, that are 81, they fall into tears, but I know from my personal experience, I've seen a lot of gentlemen that are being transferred from my state, they're being transferred to county. They've made them 10, 20 years, but depending on how their court case when they're transferred to release. My question, you guys follow them? So, and I'm seeing a lot of Contra Costa County lately. I'm getting a lot of guys that have served state prison time with their in terms of how do you navigate with that person to make sure that when they get out, they can still connect to a hope and now they're not staying anymore. And
Not a context.
Yeah. Yeah, so if they're, we try to do the matching at least a month in advance, right? So that it's like timely in a way that we know exactly what the person has been up to in the last month, but that they have somewhere to go if they're like at transitional or if they're getting released from prison. So we can do the matching while they're still inside. We just set up a phone call. In some cases, we do video conferencing. We will try to do that. The individual that got released this last week, he wasn't sent to county, but he could have been because he was resentenced, and that's how he got released immediately. He had gotten a parole grant, but because his resentencing, he got some time served, so he's not even on parole. So he came out with no kind of guidance or resources or anything like that. So for him, we kind of work backwards through the process, but we're flexible, and I think I try to write to everybody who's like approved inside on a regular basis, like what's updated, like what's going on. Let me look at your, inmate locator and see when your parole, next parole hearing is. Keep us posted. We have a calendar to kind of try to time it for their release dates and things like that. But things change,
Right.
And so keeping those connections like as strong and fresh as possible.
The only other thing I'll add, if I can quickly, I appreciate what you shared about the power of this. I think the other piece that I'll need that was powerful for me is, when I first learned about the homecoming project, I said, that's crazy, that's a lot of idea. And then I saw the videos and I'm like, oh, wow, take somebody in right now, let's do this. And how do I make this possible? I think the thing that's not me, and Ozzy, I think you're incredibly brave to say, I'm someone who was incarcerated, I'm formerly incarcerated, because the reality is the risk for you in saying that in most spaces is high. That there are not all these safe spaces in which you can. So I think that's a testament to the people in this room, so the work that you all are doing, that you feel like you can say that, and it's also a testament to who you are, that you feel like you can show up and say that it moves the work forward. We believe that when hosts are partial back to the communities, when hosts are a part of the solution, we are looking at hosts performing incarcerated in a very different way than they have been. So we are saying that more is possible when we can change that narrative.
May I stop us here 1 second? I'm looking at the clock. They shouldn't.
Oh.
I've got a suggestion here. If you ladies would be kind enough to stay with us. If we boogie through these other items on the agenda, we can circle back prior to adjourning. But why don't we open up to those on Zoom? Are there any comments that you would like to make to our presenters? Tiffany, Charles, Rena. And, oh, just a minute, I'm gonna put the insurance together. Any comments for that? Is there any comment?
Brenda, I would love for you to be at my church this Sunday. Let's talk after.
I have a possibility for a new one. My church in Newark is too far.
That's definitely fun. 2 for 1. Yes, yes, thank you, in Richmond. Yeah.
Okay, then. Well, first of all, we're going to take a pause. We're not ending here. And let's move to the next item. Can you put our agenda up kindly, Monique?
Yes, just 1 second, please. I'm getting back to the agenda.
And Scott, you're in the queue here. And if you could put attachment 3 on the screen, which is a ambassador toolkit, if you would. And then we can go to the. Yeah, we probably could circle back to it. No, you're not done. I think you're not done. All right, are we ready then? Scott, can you go back to the first page? And Scott, do you want to start or how do we want to do this?
I'm more than happy to jump in and then you rescue me. Okay, good.
All right.
So, wow. The Ambassador Program Guide. This was an effort really by all of us, right? Last year and then the year before, to kind of perfect and for visitors and new employees, what's the purpose of the Ambassador Program, right? Well, we answer to CCP, which is the community partnership, and in doing so, we end up meeting with a lot of key figures associated with that CCP. We have an ambassador meeting, and it's with some of the department heads that actually head up those agencies or their designee. In the case of the sheriff and others that have huge agencies, a lot of times they have an assistant sheriff, for instance. In any event, then we also have politicians or board of supervisors. So how do you have consistency in an ambassador? We wanted to help foster some consistency. So we worked diligently in putting together a series of documents that kind of represent the steps that you go through to achieve a meeting. So the Ambassador Program Executive Summary is just that. It basically says, in essence, some of the things that I just said. The ambassador assignments are it's a combination of, geez, I'd like to, as a member of the board, have a meeting with this board of supervisor. I think that would be cool. Or this department head. But then, the math doesn't always work out. So some of us end up with maybe 3 instead of 2 ambassador meetings. Some not the ones that they were hoping for the most because that's already taken by someone else. But those assignments are negotiated and achieved civilly, and we then kind of execute these meetings. Points of contact for, that's just simply that group that I was talking about, the CCP. So the board of supervisors, those department heads, and how do you access them? So there's the contact information. The sample correspondence requesting ambassador meeting. So here, how do you reach out to establish the meeting? I didn't choose to establish mine with this sample of correspondence. I call directly and I arrange those meetings, but you could send an email to arrange for it. And what do you say? So we gave some sample language. It gives some understanding of, okay, I'm gonna have this meeting. This is what needs to be communicated for that time and place. A lot of them are handled by Zoom. I'm gonna guess the time not gonna change, right? Am I doing okay? Or okay. I've been thrown off the island a couple times, so. Okay. So tips for effective ambassador meetings. This is such a stuff, right? I mean, this is a hot subject that we're dealing with no matter what. And how do you communicate to this diverse group the things that we want to communicate? And I think so we've established some of these tips in how to be effective. And you know, you can end up on this board and be very well-rounded in terms of your experience in life, but you don't maybe have that experience in communicating something like this program to a politician. So we've given some good pointers and good clues in how to be successful. And now that she scrambled my my table of contents, I think exactly what next is so. But what each so while she's scrolling and we're all getting seasick trying to follow it, what is important about these meetings? Well, there's these contemporary issues. And for instance, we all worked hard last year. It's one of those things we want to communicate. And the importance of housing for reentry was huge. And your presentation, I thought, was really moving and a great example of what we're trying to achieve. Mental health services. And that we put a lot of emphasis on, and the creation of jobs, because you try to, you know, so we communicated to our board of supervisors and department heads, these three were really important to us. And that's kind of how we rolled. Here is that sheet right there that shows the different assignments.
Why don't we stop right here? Yeah, just a minute. Can you stop? Yeah, Monique, could you stop at this slide and then Scott will tell you to move to the next slide and cover that area. So why don't we cover this area? Right.
Okay.
I need some Dramamine.
Yeah.
Watching.
Okay.
Yeah. So here's our assignments and so you'll see the first and the second. So we have a primary that's certainly negotiable between the two parties of our board that will go to that ambassador meeting. But for instance, we're meeting, let's say, with the board of supervisors. We have kind of a lead that drives the questions, and we have a secondary person. That should all be negotiated well before you have the call as to how you want to roll. And I will say this much: when you're dealing with, this is not a criticism, but when you're dealing with politicians, such as the board of supervisors, trust me, that agenda becomes theirs largely too, and that's a good thing because they can learn where they're coming from. And I'm moved by the fact that Candace Anderson, right? Was and our new Mr. Carlson,
yeah,
are both very supportive, very interested, and knowledgeable about the justice system. So it was great meetings. So you see the first and second, you'll see, for instance, the court that was actually handled last year by Crawford and I.
Yeah.
And I dreaded it a little bit because the individual that we were dealing with was hard to reach. And he finally reached us, and I kind of thought maybe he was reluctant or didn't want to meet with us. Ended up being very helpful and very educational. He didn't know what we did, and we were able to tell him what we do and what we represent. So it was powerful. And I thought it was maybe going to be a waste of time. To be real honest, he was great. So we don't want to do like I did and start to prejudge how it's gonna roll, right? Because it may roll very different and it was very beneficial. Next slide.
Oh, wait a minute, can we stop right here?
Sure.
If we may, if you'll take a look at the slide, this is what many of you had asked. We did our best, but if you look, could you scroll up just one or two notches or down, scroll down? We had to take into consideration what committees you're on because of the Brown Act. So some of you didn't get your doggone choices.
Right.
And we had to kind of move you around. So we did our best, trust me. And some of you only have 2. Some of you have 3, and others have 4.
Jackpot.
Yeah.
And anything for you, Crawford.
And the method behind the madness here was, we've had the most experience, so therefore, we've got to carry the load. And if any of the others desire to pick up one of or participate where Nicole is or where I happen to be, I can step back, but we got to be very conscious of what committee you serve on. Because you can't serve on somebody, on one of the ambassador meetings if you're on the same doggone standing committee. So.
Crawford, I have a couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
So on that line for Joya's,
Joy,
Brenda
got it.
and Reverend Van Hook are in the same subcommittee, so they're not able to be on the same committee.
But no, because of quorum, that one committee has,
That's 50%.
what is it called? If I'm correct.
Short of it, you should be there. Right?
Yeah, no, what is quorum? Okay, which committee are you referring to? OCEC?
OCEC.
Okay, you have 4 people on the committee. And you've got 2. Did we violate quorum?
No, you need 3 in order to have.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh,
You need 3 on that.
got it. Okay,
Yeah,
great,
okay.
thank you.
Thank you. Good call out.
2 additional questions though.
Yeah.
So on the following page is all the context, which is beautiful.
Yes.
But it's not inclusive of all of the headings that you have here.
So that's an area then that we need to
We'll
address.
clean up that.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
clean that up. Yeah, that's why we're talking about it, for exactly what you're bringing to light.
And then the last piece would be that our subcommittee is trying to bring 3 of these departments to the larger CAB meeting next month.
Yeah.
Are we doing these actions in parallel? So we're having them come to the meeting as well as we're setting up individual meetings for this process.
Those, you mean for our segment? I have 1 or 2.
So we're bringing H3 behavioral health and EHSD theoretically to the meeting next month. So we can discuss the additional investments from CCP. So I'm asking, are we also going through this process to do an individual meeting with them in a parallel action to having them come to this meeting?
Yes, the
Yes.
meeting is the ambassador meeting and where the feedback we get is different than what.
Got it. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
2 different.
2 different missions, kind of, yeah, good question,
Awesome.
yeah.
Okay. Any other? Oh,
Well, I just wanted to add, so what it appears is that this is about the CAB communicating to the CCP members or the other side of the table about our things. I learned was working with Renita, for instance. It helped me understand who Renita is. So I learned a lot about Renita while I'm having a meeting about it with the board of supervisors. And it fosters a lot of respect and kind of that, working together. So that was the benefit of this program too.
Could you go to the next? Oh, wait a minute. Any more questions on this? Because I'm looking at the clock, but we want to cover each of the slides. Next slide then, please. Monet.
Well, she's still-
Okay, wait. Okay, just, next slide.
Yeah, I
This
was,
is- okay.
that's this is the contact information, and Justin was kind enough to say it's not complete. That is helpful to see that, and we'll make sure there's some added information for those that aren't represented in this list. Next slide.
Okay, this is just a sample. Go ahead then.
Yeah, so, suggest. Ooh. So these are just sample communications. And, you can use them. You don't have to use them. You can use your own technique or your own style of communicating. We just got those in there. So next slide. Oh, here's the, those pointers that are important for any meeting. Punctual, polite, professional, personable, engaging. Just what you guys did here in your program for us. So those are basics. So you can move on with the slide. Oh, and then kind of the sample narrative and who represents. So the lead may take one question, then the secondary another. This is kind of a suggested rolling protocol for how the meeting should go. Once again, does not have to go that way.
And let me just add, the key here was, at least I know when I was a rookie, it's like the lead then is dominating the meeting. I don't think you learn that way. You learn by working together and participation. And I know when Ozzy and I had a chance to jump up to the plate, this is kind of the format we were able to follow, and we bounce off of each other. So that while one person is talking the lead, guess what? The second is taking notes. Then the lead gets a chance to take a breath, and then the doggone lead can take notes while the second is talking. And then we try to cover various topics, we address them. And again, as Scott said, it's a boilerplate, it's a roadmap. You don't want to use it, throw it away. No, we can care less.
And I felt so blessed working with Crawford, because Crawford could see what I missed, and I could see something that maybe Crawford, and we just roll right through and had a great meeting.
We did.
Watching out for each other's interests, the interests of CAB. So it was a good team. You can roll on there, Monique. So, oh, okay. So there's those basic tenets that we thought was important, the pillars for CAB, kind of our statement, our mission, because a lot of people didn't know. We visited with the courts representative. He wasn't aware of our role. So that was important to have that in there and share the dynamics of what we do. Keep going. I'm trying to get Bernadette back on the okay, so here you see we believe the true justice requires social. There's some tenets that have been accepted in the past that we felt were good for today and for tomorrow. So we've included those. We didn't, in one of the meetings I had, we never even got to that because the supervisor was so interested in other things. She had her questions. They became really important for us to answer. So keep rolling.
She can go through this now.
Oh, yeah.
Just
roll. Yeah, keep rolling until we, I think everyone's got a great grasp of what this is all about. So what you'll see, and I don't really need to have a slide for this, is there's kind of a reporting back, right? We have, so you take notes when you're in this interview, and then you report back with a form that the county has accepted. And it's very easy to complete. It's not a long, laborious thing. It's just the highlights of the meeting so that we can, get back to the supervisor if they had questions that we couldn't answer or things of that nature. It characterizes the content of our conversation. And that's really the final thing here is the thank you. I didn't choose in one case to thank the person by email. I talked to the person, personally. I thought that was the best way. You can certainly choose how to thank the participant, unless you don't want to. Then don't send them. Okay. Yeah.
So I just wanted to tell you, it's fun. My first year, I'm not gonna lie, to you, I was scared, because I've never talked to like officials in this type of setting. But after, they does a lot of work and there's some people scared. One of the key things I really like is, Ivy and Crawford also has been talking. And it helped me a lot because I was nervous and what's saying. But it's fun, so have fun with it. I know you went over a lot, but it's and it helps you, but don't be nervous. I mean, someone said that to me on my first time, it is a lot of fun. It is.
Don't tell me don't be nervous, then I'm nervous.
Don't be nervous. But I was nervous, be completely nervous. But it's gonna shock you because you're gonna have fun and they will take over the call sometime in a positive manner.
Okay.
And then sometimes you can completely off of that sheet. Yeah, and then you're just having fun and you're doing talking points and my favorite part is they wanna follow up. I don't know if you ever did it. Yeah. I'm asking for a follow up, so I just wanted to convince you for the work as well.
Well, thank you. And you're seeing kind of the spirit of the group here. We represent a lot of different angles, but
I'll be in the back, I'll be quiet.
You know, I'm always looking for other cast members, you know, when they're leaving.
Are there any other questions? Because we've got to go to another important item. Any other questions? Now, again,
Timeline of when we want to.
okay, this is our draft.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is the draft.
Right.
And then, once we get AB 109 forward.
oh, the survey.
Denise, what's it?
Denise was sitting there.
Okay, oh, seriously, once we get that survey, then we will update.
So we're a couple months out.
No, we're a couple of months out for this, for the kit. But your assignments, we should start making those calls now. Because we found out that it could take 2 to 3 months to get on the supervisors or some of these county officials on their agendas. So now, and Monique, let's make sure we get those assignments out and the contacts, and let's start making your appointments now. We'll follow up and update that draft document.
So when would be the earliest that we would be able to schedule something? When do you think that information would be available that we'd be able to post?
I would say try for August, September, October, August, September, somewhere in that.
And you are gonna go
Yeah.
right together.
Oh, yeah.
Just a real quick.
Yeah.
So if you can tell me which ones were missing.
H3 behavioral health and Allegheny.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
H3
there's-
behavioral-
Yeah, I was gonna ask a question, so, to not confuse H3 behavior health, because I haven't called them today. Can we do like one handoff? So for example, I had a call with H3 last week for the subcommittee. And now for Brenda and. I'm not Brenda, Evan, no, I can't remember. Yeah, Brenda and. What about brains? Too many lines on here. And I bet we would need maybe a handoff saying, hey, these individuals from Capital talks about the best of us. They don't be confused mixing what we're doing.
Correct.
I would
Yeah.
HSD as well.
Excellent.
So like, I think we're gonna confuse them if they talk to us and now somebody else is calling them.
Yeah.
So I don't mind doing.
Okay.
I think that makes great sense. The other thing is the actual CCP representative may not be who's coming for your other purpose here, right? It could be different people from that organization. So,
I think we're trying to get the director.
all right, well, that's
Yeah,
good.
those will probably be the same,
In your
the
case,
same point of contact, but I'm assuming, because I don't know, I guess it depends on what you give me. H3 and Red Cross.
H3 probably would be 2 different, so you probably for your ambassador, you probably want to meet with Christy Sack.
That's what I'm at with.
And I believe at the last meeting, I got pinged that Jamie Jeanette would be the person for the H3.
So she's the one doing the presentation, but I spoke with Christy first.
Yeah, okay.
So.
Well, then
that's all.
whatever, Chrissy's the director, so whatever
She goes and,
she may send Jamie.
yeah,
for
she
the
goes send
presentation.
Jamie for the presentation.
Okay,
And then, but she was the person that I spoke to talk about.
she should be the one you have in the past.
Understood, okay,
Thanks.
okay.
All right. Any other questions? Because we should, oh, wait a minute, yes.
Please, if I may, I'll be, quick. It's just, is H3 Nicole, the organization for, homelessness? The reason I ask is because that was what I thought, because I know we spoke, and I don't know if this is, something you want to take into consideration. You know, we hear that, this is a few data points that have alarmed me, is that folks who are formerly incarcerated are 2 times more likely to be homeless, to experience homelessness than someone who was not incarcerated. Another one that I just heard from the California Department of Justice is that 70% of people who are experiencing homelessness haven't been elected. And so, given the real close intersection and between houselessness and reentry, I wonder if you all have thought about having H3, I think your representative here and vice versa, at these meetings, because it seems like it's such a close connection. There's something that you are doing here that is driving toward the same goal, and you probably could do a better in concert and know the same people and do some things, just like, oh, we need to talk to this person and this person, and you have this person ready.
Thank you. Any other questions? Because we have to go to the next item. Right. Okay, Scott, this should be a little quicker.
Oh, this would be real quick. There's been an interest by CAC to have a tour of one of the sheriff's facilities. We realize because of the Brown Act that we can't take the whole cab to the jail for a tour because it becomes then a public meeting, and the sheriff is not about to host public meetings in jail, right? Yeah. So if we, what did we say, six members, six members of the CAB can go on this tour. So today, there were two things that we kind of wanted to, who's interested in the walkthrough. And also, there's a proposed date, and that may not be a good date for everyone. I have not gotten permission for the tour yet because I want to make sure it works for us. If I go to the sheriff and say, hey, we'd like to have a tour on the 10th, but none of you want it on the 10th, that would be a waste of the sheriff's time. So right now, August 10th is the proposed date. I was going to call the assistant sheriff in charge of the detention facilities and try to put this together. But not everyone can go because of the Brown Act. So
even one more layer on that is it wouldn't even be 6 members, it's gonna be at the most 4, because the subcommittees at 3 people can't have 2 people attend from the same subcommittee. So it would be 1 from one subcommittee, 1 from one subcommittee, at the most 2 from the last one. So the most you could have is 4.
You did tell me.
So can we do 2 tours? Like,
Can I? So in the past, Sheriff's Office has made tours available to CAB members. There is probably likely chance that they could schedule multiple tours for whoever is interested. I would say go over to Jody Sickeneer to help arrange that. And you also have your she'll do all the support, the paperwork for your daily clearance, your 1 day forward. Yeah, they one time clearance, what you call. You'll need that in order to.
You can remove me off the list, I already work.
Yeah.
yeah, but so you could be there in a different capacity, right?
Yeah, I want that to say hello.
Which facility are you
I'm working on 3 of them.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Oh, keep in mind, MDF will be closed off as of the 6th, 17th, so we have to do what's done.
Yeah, let's stay on task here. Number 1, Scott will be one person that will go. Now let's see where there is interest, because the theme was we had a general CAB meeting. So we go our general CAB meeting from 10 to 12 and maybe get a quick sandwich, and we go 1 or 1:30 to get a bite to eat, and then you go to the county jail. So that's the scheme. So really, let's first find out where there is interest. And we can go from there.
And also to give my recommendation.
Yeah.
Definitely want to talk to Joe.
Okay, well, you gotta see, he's.
Yeah, because it all depends on the jail, so Jody would actually be able to give you if one is at work, it's very tricky.
Well, excuse me, he's an ex.
I'm at-
We've got it set up, that's not the issue.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just going right through the assistant. sheriff.
Yeah, no, that's not the issue, we got that covered. Okay,
So I guess is what Justin said accurate though, because we have our CAB meetings and the Brown Act requirement, we have our committee requirements. This is a whole CAB, after a CAB meeting going down there, would we have to abide by it?
We can't hang out together.
oh,
We can't communicate.
Right.
This is the only space in our subcommittee is the only space we're allowed.
Okay, so this is outside of my wheelhouse.
Yeah, that's right, the trees, right?
So,
Yeah, so if you have any, so the Brown Act is not just for the full cab body, it also obviously governs the subcommittee. So if at any time you have a quorum of members for the full cab or a subcommittee, then you are essentially well, you're not in violation of it, Brian, but you now have a public, which would constitute that space.
Yeah.
Public notice, the public will have to have access there. We now have a virtual option. We make sure that folks can join by Zoom, all of that. So that's why I would recommend whoever you're speaking to at the sheriff's office, just you can mention to them however many people are interested in taking the tour. If it's possible that a tour of 3 or 4 on multiple several days. They do. It's happened in the past. It doesn't.
that's good. Well, you know where we are then, I think what you said, one from each of the standing committees with the exception of OCs.
Right.
Real simple, so then, yeah, so
Okay.
let's cut through the chase. Do you want to go?
Yeah.
Good, that's done, now your committee, who's gonna come from your committee?
It won't be me. It's like we can-
Yeah.
If you guys are talking, it sounds really muffled. We can barely hear you.
So I think
Oh, okay, sorry.
So, okay, so we have Justin and Scott, there's 2. And we have what, room for,
we said, what was fixed, because
Brenda?
okay, so Brenda and you're on which? OCEC. Okay, so Brenda from OCEC,
And Scott.
you're from OCEC, okay, that's done, so we need one from yours.
Either Rena or the time, whichever one we want.
Okay, why don't we put, yeah, and we'll check with each of them.
Rena at the previous meetings. Is that correct? Rena?
I'm formerly incarcerated, so I wasn't sure if I could attend.
Oh, I think we've taken care of that issue, so I think
Okay.
you're welcome to go on this tour. Because I already flight tested that, that's not an issue.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm open to go if Latanya doesn't want to go.
All right then, so what does that give us for the total?
So we have Rena, Brenda, Scott, Justin, there's 4. So we have really. Right?
No.
Or another 2.
Oh, or a second.
Yeah.
Well,
Anybody else?
so is the date, we have an August, right, 10th meeting. Is that date afterward look good for you, Justin? Because I don't want to be great. Okay, great. I'll certainly make it work. And really, you're good after. Yeah. So I'll get a hold of you.
Mr. Peterson, with the Sheriff's Department, and, okay. All right, okay, and if there's a vacancy, I'll go along, I've already had a tour, but if there's a vacancy and somebody else who doesn't want to go, then I'll go. If not, I'll go with the second group, how's that, if there is a second?
Yeah, if there is, right
All
now.
right, okay, all right, that's done. Now we've got to move along here a little bit. By the way, thank you for that stuff. And you have Patrice for your feedback here. Everything is helpful here. Okay, let's move to some of our reports. We're on item number 7. Anything from the Board of Supervisors?
I did not attend, I did handle, board supervisor CCP.
Would you?
Okay, that'll be great. I was not in attendance at any of the May 16th and 23rd board supervisor meeting, but just really quickly and looking at their agenda, it looks like there was some discussion around approving the co-director position for the soon to be open office of racial equity and social justice. There also seemed to be a discussion around or just final items to adopt the full county budget that took place. And then the Measure X Innovation Fund, its first phase of grants, looks like they were approved. They set aside, county set aside about $2 million that will go out in innovation grants, phasing out when they would receive awards or their RFPs. That so it seemed to be about 40,000, I believe, that would be awarded in small micro grants. So that's for supervisor meeting. The videos are up, so if you guys want to catch you with those specific items. Website. CCP unfortunately was canceled in June, as well as the PPCG meeting. However, there may be a rescheduling of the CCP meeting for later in July. That will then give the CAO's office an opportunity to provide, or at least start to put together a set of recommendation form process to allocate that 15 million and maybe 109 excess funds to cover or put into place to expand in certain areas that have that's what we need as priorities. That includes release engagement, housing services, support for folks with behavioral health and other disabling conditions. Oh, employment services. PPC was canceled for June. Hopefully there will be a meeting in July. Just want to also note too that typically Paul Reyes from CAO's office, who would serve as a staffer to CCP and PPC, has been reassigned to Health Services Department. So we have another new CAO senior CAO. I think all that title. Anyway, a new representative from CL's office that will be in charge of staffing some of these committees that are in the realm of public protection of public safety, and even those is her name. So I'm not quite sure that changes things up for your ambassador meeting. Whoever was your point person that you guys are planning to speak with, anyway, you can help make those.
Right. And Nicole, can you pick up the agenda? Can you do outreach? I will be back in a second.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is for outreach and community engagement.
That's me.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I'll be real quick. We basically worked on our 2023 work plan, and as you can see, with Ribbon and Hook is going to reach out to past cab members. Okay, and Monique informed the committee that ORJ will develop a survey that we're thinking about. Also, Monique was to monitor and report back to our committee. Ribbon and Hook is working with Evan on task 3, on task 4. There are no applications, which means we're looking at how to redevelop our application packet, but since we have no applicants at the time, we just decided to just table that for the time being. We're still interested in people, we just don't have any applications to review. But then we have, of course, the ambassador toolkit, we just gone over, we talked about that. And then we also discussed the CAP PowerPoint with the updates and revisions that are completed by Crawford and Scott. The mayoral contact list, we divided up amongst the members, and we all got certain cities that we were to contact to get their contact for the mayor's office. Understanding that you're not necessarily going to get the mayor most likely you're gonna get an assistant, a city clerk. So I just want to say, I contact all my, I contact all my people. Okay, and then we also saw, Evan updated the contact list of state senators and representatives. So you can see our next steps for the contact persons with the mayors, and I'm gonna provide the message to contact state-based organizations recap. Representative, yes, we'll leave that.
Also make a quick announcement and recommendation to have, being that the CCP meeting will be rescheduled for later in July. If any of you would like an applicant or applicants to be approved by CCP by that deadline, that means it would be really, really important to get applications in time for the next OCEC meeting, so you do interviews and then bring it to the full cap for approval, and then we move up to the July CCP. Otherwise, you will have to wait until September.
Maybe if we could add to that, we did have one applicant, and they will be on, that individual, the lady will be on the OCEC this month.
Okay.
Yeah, just for crazy. Next person, okay, next on the agenda then. Who's next? Let me get back.
Programs and services.
Okay, programs and services. Anything from your?
Absolutely.
Oh.
The first thing, there was an announcement prior to the beginning, and that was that as the chairperson, I thought it was a great idea that we began rotating the leadership on that subcommittee, so that each of the members had an opportunity to get a feel of what it is like to see up here and coordinate and officiate. So the time we will be first step back. We also discussed the CAB's policy, program services survey questions for the in-custody participants. And we added some demographics that included gender, age, range, ethnic background, and non-disability. And hopefully we'll have that survey finalized by June, so they can move on to get to ORJ to facilitate how it will be distributed within our in-custody, for our in-custody. We also discussed our finalized program services 8109 provider survey, which we here giving an update on what that's going and what that's looking like. I'm going to reiterate, you said that there were currently 13 responses, and we asked if she have like massage that list of individuals that she's hopeful also to send out another urgency that it be completed by this Friday, and hopefully we'll have the results that she stated earlier forthcoming. The survey was distributed on May 18th, and the survey was due June 2nd, but it's been extended until this Friday. We also approved our program services work plan. So everything is finally, we approved it in May, and we've been moving forward on it, but actually, I'm just glad to say that we finalized it. Our next steps include finalizing an in-custody survey question. We also want to continue discussing our community-based organization, the questions that we're going to ask, because we're planning on visiting various agencies. Well, committed to, I think, 3 each. And we're also going to discuss further community-based organization presence.
Thank you, Oscar. James. Woo. You've been busy.
We were done with our work plan way ahead.
Okay, now, did you cover Measure X, or you are on the agenda next for Measure X?
Okay, the Measure X, yes, I was there.
Okay.
And I wasn't in person, but I was on virtual, and there was an election of officers. And one thing I want to kind of like the input, it's a great experience to be there in the beginning of formation of this community advisory board, it's funding, because you get to actually go through the process and you get the election of officers, the chair and vice chair, sorry. We also discussed teleconferencing guidelines, because of course there's some stipulations getting used to the virtual and also being the number of individuals needed for form. We met in the room and also for just cause and how that would work. Presentation of Measure X oversight options. Very interesting. We did a comparison of county oversight committees. We reviewed the Measure X bylaws revisions, and we received updates from the fiscal year 2024 budget. And decreased it and said, okay, let me fund that's being allocated. And our next meeting is June 21st.
Thank you, Austin.
Yes, I would definitely like to, still want you right here from your committee, because I already told, Justin that they'll be taking turns, so. Yes, so I'll go over this really quickly, from our policy and budget meeting on 5/19. It was a great meeting, some highlights, we debriefed about the CCP meeting regarding CAB's approved recommendations. I'm still very excited about that. We discussed preparing an evaluation for excess funds approved by CCP. And we reviewed and updated the county strategy document that we're creating. We're creating a document to leave for those that will take over by spot for policy and budget to have more of like a talking point document to work and collaborate with county programs in reference to our recommendations, and we reviewed our work plan. Our next steps is to discuss questions for CPOs at the July CAB meeting. As I said earlier, we have a few of our, it's not the CPOs, but it's the county departments that are coming to like information about, for example, on regulations, housing, employment, and behavioral health. So we're going to look at trying to create questions for that, review recommendations to help guide questions for them, and then request an update from and our next meeting is going to be on June 16th. Yes, please.
One additional question here. One additional question is we're working on a presentation that will be for the full CAB next month. For the department directors, but through that, does that need to get approved by anyone outside of our subcommittee before it's presented to the full CAB?
I think you have to send the draft, get it to Tracy's office or.
Yeah, so we're sending a draft to Monique so that we can review it in our agenda. But just beyond that, I didn't know if there wanted to be collaboration on that because it's going to be like a representation of all of us, but it's going to be led by our subcommittee.
Go for it. All right. Thank you. We have another item. Rena, I believe you're still with us.
Yes, I am.
Yes, was there anything from the council on homelessness that you would like to share with us?
Okay, I attended 2 meetings. One was on May 4th, and the other was on June 1st. At the May 4th meeting, they approved the revisions to the 2023 Continuum of Care Competition Renewal Housing Project Scoring Tool as recommended by the Funding Committee. They approved revisions to the Continuum of Care and Emergency Solutions Grant Written Standards as recommended by the Oversight Committee. They announced the PIT count results. So there are 2,372 people who are experiencing homelessness in Contra Costa County on January 24th. 70% were unhoused. 1,653 people, which is 4%, which is a 4% increase from 2020. They went over the housing inventory count. The housing inventory count demonstrates capacity to shelter and house people experiencing homelessness on the night of January 24th, 2023. So there's 613 emergency shelter beds, 275 transitional housing beds, 294 rapid rehousing, 274 other permanent housing, and 1,323 permanent supportive housing. And they also went over the California State Association of Counties at Home Plan, which was released in March. The plan outlines clear responsibilities aligned with accountability and sustainable funding for all levels of government. And at the June 1st meeting, they picked 8 council members to volunteer for the COC NOFO review and rank panel. The panel will review and score applications. Contra Costa County was awarded $17.3 million. They also reviewed and approved revisions to the 2023 Continuum of Care Competition New Housing Project Scoring Tool and Application Process as recommended by the Funding Committee. HUD awarded Contra Costa County $5.3 million in a one-time 3-year award. This grant enables COC to permanently house 28 households with serious challenges. They also discussed the Project Home Key update with H3. So H3 submitted an application for a 54-unit building in San Pablo. The project is named El Portel Place and will house chronically homeless households and efficiency units. COC funded rental assistance and support services will be on site. And then, as I said at the from the meeting from 5-4, they also went over again the California State Association of Counties at Home Plan, and they discussed the homeless prevention program through COC to prevent a person at risk of homelessness from becoming homeless, or to divert a person from experiencing homelessness from entering the homeless response system. To qualify for that program, you must be within 14 days of losing housing. They can offer an individual $3,000 and families up to $5,000 for things like rent, deposits, first month's rent, relocating costs. And to get into that program, you can be referred by 211 CalWorks or probation. And the next meeting is on July 6th.
Thank you very much, Rena. Appreciate the hard work there.
No problem.
Very much appreciated. All right, next item on our agenda, next steps. Monique, do you have some words there for us, some items?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Next steps, do you have any items? I've got the one that was suggested here about having H3 people at our CAB meetings. Is that something that you and your office should do, or do you want, how do we want to at least ask them if they would carry with them?
Yes. Go ahead, Justin. I'm sorry.
Not just one meeting, but all of our meetings, yeah. Yeah, so how do we want to, well, why don't we put that down there as next steps, as maybe, you're most, yeah, you can just only take that, okay.
Okay.
All right, any other items here that we need to follow up on, and any other items?
Updating the contact list with all of the.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you and I,
Yeah.
look, I've already got the ones you mentioned, I just checked my list. I've got those, because again, this was just a draft of the final one that goes out. But we will verify. Trust it, verify. Okay, go ahead.
Scott reaches out to Assistant Sheriff Simpson for this tour.
Okay, and can you put that down for next steps on that tour,
Yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm.
And bring that together. Anything from you, Patrice, that you think are next steps is together? Well, you should have something. Okay. Okay. All right. Thanks. Okay. Okay, prior to adjourning.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. No, that's all right. Hey, it's all good. Prior to adjourning, are there any other observations or comments? And the question, is this Monique's last meeting?
I believe so, last full time.
Okay, that's what I thought. Well, do any of you want to say anything regarding or about Monique?
Well, yeah, see your friend. I mean, I'll miss you. You've been great. I know how to find you, so we're not going away anywhere. I just want to see you on here. I'll find you.
Okay, anybody else?
Well, certainly want to thank you for all the hard work.
Yes.
Keeping us lined up and going in the right direction.
Yeah. Anybody else, any comments for Monique? Well, I would like to say that I'm going to miss you and particularly bugging you and sending you text messages, and reaching you not only on your office phone, but on your cell phone. And that's important. And here, I'll reach your cell phone. Yeah. Okay.
We'll let you know.
So, Monique, we're really gonna miss you, and it's been an absolute joy working with you. Absolutely. And unless there's anything else,
I'll just add
Yeah.
to that we're hosting a small, going away from a week, on Wednesday, June the 21st. So if you guys want to swing by, triple in, just know that if all of you guys show up at the same time, I'll probably be happy. And, try to, schedule you guys in. It started around noonish.
oh. Well, okay. And where's, will you send us,
Yeah.
all right.
Thank you all for your kind words. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Monique. Well, again, unless there are any other comments, maybe a parting remark here today. Just listening to our committee reports and just the other comments and having guests such as yourself, you're gonna bring in a group. You know what, we are really making some progress here. And I know personally, I feel we should be making more, but you're gonna accept what we've been given. And by George, I think this is great. We need to keep moving forward. And we have to always remember that if we do this together, there's no telling what the heck we're going to be able to accomplish. So thanks much, and we will adjourn, and you're going to speak with us to chit chat.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day, everybody.
In